Hey folks, Paul Abernathy here. Welcome to part 3 in this exam prep series where we're digging into some exam prep style questions. We worked our way through some fairly easy ones to kind of give you an understanding of the principles and how to look at a question and how not to have to use the index. You're just kind of looking at a question and getting a feel for it. Now, these questions are part of our database that's available in our 2020 and our 2023 exam prep series. But even if you're not preparing for an electrical exam, our Fastracks exam prep style course is also an NEC learning course. So you don't have to be doing an exam to get something out of our program. Now, we're going to pick up here, and the questions are going to be a little more difficult, and we're going to explain them a little more. We're going to try to do them without the index, because in this series, this special series, I'm trying to get you to see how you would identify that an article is not very big and how to use maybe the table of contents and those type of things. But again, I don't want you to lose sight that the index is a powerful tool. I just don't want you to rely on it like a crutch. And so in our program, our Fastracks program, you're going to actually learn in these 19 units things that are just going to be locked in your brain. And you're not going to need the index, because when you see it on an exam, you're just going to know these things. You're going to create electronic flashcards in our system that you're going to be able to spit out different articles like 334 for non-metallic sheath cable, 340 for UF cable, 338 for SE cable, 336 for tray cable, 330 for MC cable, 320 for AC cable. You're going to understand these things, and it's just going to roll off your tongue. It's going to make you better in the field. So that's why I tell people it's not just for exam prep. It's to make you a better electrician, and that's what I really am the most proudest about when it comes to our programs, is that we took a program and we've kind of twisted it around, we've added our own content, we've manipulated it, and we're presenting it in a way to really help you learn. And we're backing it up by giving you the Sparky Hub to ask your questions. You got a mobile app that you can ask questions to us. So many ways to support you. That's what you're paying for. This is the world's only structured exam prep and National Electrical Code learning type of program. Now you're saying, where can I get it? I know we got to get started into these questions, but I want to show you where you get it real quick, because a lot of people say, where do I get your program? And what's the difference in, let's say, the Fastracks Black Plus program? What's the difference? Okay, I got to show you that. Please don't click away. Endure me this to be able to show you this real quick. So let's go look at it. So here's our website, and when you come here, and it's at fastracksystem.com, you can see it right down below down there. You will see here that we have all these links at the top, and underneath the courses, you'll see a list of all of our courses. All right, now our courses, we have some post-licensing courses, residential, commercial, industrial, grounding and bonding. We even have a course for HVAC electricians, how to troubleshoot calls, how to do things, how to take measurements. Yeah, we even got that. People don't know that, but we do. There's so much here. We have basic electrical theory, which is a great course to learn all those things you ever wondered how electricity works, and all those things that you just took for granted, but you're going to learn in that program. But they're all right here. But what people ask us the most about is our Fastracks Black and Plus. What's the difference? So those are our premier NEC learning as well as exam prep courses. What's the difference between the Black and the Plus? Well, they're the same course. The only difference is the Plus also gives you access to 12 months of video access. And the videos are random videos on calculations, code changes, anything. There's a collection of about anything in there that I personally have selected. And they are already qualified to be accurate, and you're going to learn so much from them. And we're constantly adding more to that program. So again, I encourage you to check out Fastracks too. But if you want to get that included with your purchase, then you're going to go with the Plus. Now, if you go with the Black program, again, it's the same program itself. When you get here, I want you to realize that there's a lot of information here. You see a 2017, 2020, and 2023. Watch this video. There's a little video right here that you're going to watch. Now, the video seems like it's not showing up here. Let me refresh this and see if it'll show up here. And it still isn't showing up. But let's see. Let me go back, because it could be just a internet thing. So let's go back right here. There we go. So there's your video. Watch the video. Because the video kind of takes you through 19 units. But read all this information. You'll see kind of a scope of what this program is going to go into. Yes, we're going to cover calculations. We're going to cover the things that you really need to know as an electrician. And we're going to even dabble into healthcare and swimming pools and all those other things as well. But we're going to cover calculations, multifamily, single family, non-dwelling, all that stuff. And again, make sure you read all this. And it's on you to know what your state is testing on. It's not up to us. So make sure you check with your state before you purchase 17 or 2020 or 2023 to find out what your state is testing on. Because once you purchase it and you activate it, you can't switch courses, okay? These courses are all independently different. So it's important that you do your due diligence first, okay? But anyway, that's our website. That's where you get all that information from. Before I leave, I do want to tell you that you want to make sure that you also get our mobile app. And our mobile app has got so many resources for you out in the field. Go over here where it says mobile app, click on it, and you're going to see this link right here. Click on it, accept it. All it's going to do is put a little icon on your phone. The actual app is not on your phone. It's in the cloud. But you click on it, and it opens up our mobile app. So many features here. We have the chat now feature, which is basically just like a TikTok, but again, it's only members of the app can see it and post things, so it's a very closed network. But you also have the Sparky Hub access here, our chat room here for support questions. You've got our Fastracks tube. You got blogs on here. You even can listen to all of our podcasts. We have over nearly 1,000 episodes of podcasts on all different types of topics. You can listen right from your phone. So this is a must-have for any electrician. So make sure you get our mobile app. Okay, it's free. Doesn't cost you anything. All right, folks. Let's get to the lesson. I know that's what you came here for, and thank you for indulging me. All right, so this lesson today, as the questions are a little bit harder than the last two episodes. So make sure that you really focus and you got your code book. And again, we're in the 2023, but it shouldn't be any real difference in these questions, whether it's the 2023 or the 2020 or even the 2017, as far as these questions, okay? All right, let's get in it. All right, the first question here, remember, we're going to try to do this by using our intuition, our understanding of the code. You can pause and use the index as well. I will point out trigger words to use the index on, but really we want to focus here on the question. All right, so the first question is, it says, a legally required standby system shall have standby power readily within blank seconds after normal power failure. Now remember, there's a difference between emergency power, legally required power. Do you know the third one? It's optional standby power. Anytime you put a Generac or a Kohler generator at a house, that is not emergency. People say, well, emergency power. It's not. It is optional. Means the customer chose to have that. Okay. Now, emergency is dictated by the jurisdiction. It's dictated by the NEC. There's certain systems that have to have emergency power. But there's also legally required that might not be necessarily under an emergency application, but the jurisdiction or the building codes might stipulate something as a legally required standby system. Well, the time frame for an emergency generator to come on versus a legally required is different. So an emergency one has to be on very quickly, whereas a legally required can come on not as quick, but it's still relatively fast, whereas an optional, it's like whenever it's ready. You get me? So that's the difference. Now, one of the things that I teach with this one is you could obviously go back to the back of the book and look under legally required. You could look under standby, those type of things, and try to see if there's something in the index. What I like to do is I know that there's 3 different systems, and now you do, and you will forever know that. Emergency, legally required, and optional. Well, we know these are what? Special conditions. So where are we going to go? How about we try using the table of contents? And so we're going to go to the table of contents and look up and see what we got. So I've got the code book. Now, granted, this is 2020, but as I told you, it's not going to change. So I'm going to go to the front, and I'm going to look, and I'm going to see which chapter really pertains to this, and it's a special condition. And I see that there's 700 emergency. I see there's 701 legally required, ding, 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 ding. And of course, I see 702, which is optional. Well, we're focused on legally required. So when you look under legally required, it's only 4 parts. And you'll see part 1, general, part 2, circuit wiring, part 3, source of power. Isn't that what we're talking about here? We're talking about what happens when we lose power from the normal power system, and now we have this legally required system generator kicking on, and it has to do it within a certain amount of time. But the other thing that you'll notice is this is important. You could go in this one, for example, if you already know the 3 different types of systems, you could spend a lot of time in the index, or you could look at this and go, wait a minute, this starts on page 612 and it ends on page 614. 2 pages. I've got very defined values here, 10 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 120. How about I use a bold scan technique instead, and I'm going to go right to page 612. So we're going to do that. Now I'll do it electronically, but that's what we would do. There's only 2 pages. Bold scanning is going to help you find it quicker. So we're going to go to the code, and I'm going to go down, and we're going to go to 700, chapter 7, excuse me, we'll go to chapter 7, and we'll go to 701. And here you see, it is, again, not a lot. I'll scroll down and show you how quick this ends. That's it. It's not a lot there. 2 pages. So we're going to be bold scanning, and what are we doing? We knew that part 3 was about source of power. So we're going to skip all this, and we're going to go down to part 3. All right, sources of power. General requirement. Right here. See the 60? Sticks out to me right away. So what does it say? It says, current supply shall be such that in the event of the failure of the normal supply to or within the building or group of buildings concerned, legally required standby power will be available within the time required for the application, but not to exceed 60 seconds. So the answer to this question is 60 seconds. By the way, emergency, 10 seconds. Legally required, 60 seconds. Optional, no time frame. Okay? All right, let's go back to the question. And we're going to answer this question. We have 60 seconds, and there you go, 701.12. Next question. Y'all are doing great. All right, so the next question is, it says, bending radius of the inner edge of AC cable should not be less than blank times the diameter of the cable. Well, this is another example why flashcards are so important. In our system, in our Fastracks system, you create unlimited electronic flashcards. Back in the day, we used to make flashcards out of the index cards. You write on one side the article and the other side the description, and you just work those flashcards. We don't need to do that anymore. We're in the new modern age. You can create any number of them in our program. Hundreds of them. And I always recommend create the electronic flashcards for every article in the code so that you can start going through it and being able to rattle things off. Okay, that's the key. You want to be able to rattle it off and understand that 320 is AC cable, 330 is MC cable, 334 is non-metallic sheet cable, 336 is tray cable, 338 is SE cable, 340 is UF cable. You want to be able 430 is motors, 210 is branch circuits, 215 is feeders, 225 is outside branch circuits and feeders. You want to be able to roll these things off because you know what? It saves you time. The second step to that is if you learn the depthness of each article, you can realize when it behooves you to just do a technique called bolt scanning rather than go to the index. Trust me, there's a method to the madness. Follow me. When you're in my program, I teach you these things. You're jumping from the code book into the course, code book into the course. We have little chevrons. Go from the chevron into the code book. We have the world's only structured exam prep program. Everybody else just either gives you questions. You can buy questions cheap, but nobody's there to explain them to you. Nobody gives you the tips on how to dissect the question. We do that. So, there's a difference in learning the code. Now, not just for exam, but in the real world. I want you to be a better electrician. I guarantee you, without a doubt, I sleep well at night knowing that I make people better electricians that go through our program. You really do. So, enough of that. Look at the question. AC cable, 320. I happen to know that 320 is not very long. It's only a couple pages long. Now, you could go to the index and look under AC cable, and obviously you'll see something referencing bending, right? But I know that it's 320. I know we're looking for bending, and here's another little tip. You ready? Section 24 or dot 24 in most of the chapter 3 wiring methods references bending radius. So that's a little tip for you. Just like dot 10 and dot 12 are something to commit to memory in chapter 3, dot 10 is uses permitted, dot 12 is uses not permitted for that type of wiring method, okay? Just things that you want to remember because that's just everyday knowledge that's going to make you a better electrician. Dot 10s, dot 12s, dot 24s, securing and supporting, dot 30. Just kind of let those things lock into your head. It's just the battle is once you know it's 320, once you start learning those little things, then it's so much easier on you, not just for exam, but in the real world. Okay, so let's go to the code. We know it's 320. We know it's not a big, 320 is not a big article, and that's what you learn as you're studying. You go through our program, you'll realize that 320 is not very big, and you'll say, well, dude, it's not like Article 250. It's a small article. So you go 320 and you get here and you start bold scanning. Now the tip to bold scanning is always bold scan the heading and then look for the triggers in the information that follows the bold heading. Okay, so not permitted, uses permitted, uses not permitted. Notice the dot 12 and dot 10 again. Here, exposed work, no. Through parallel to framing members, nope. Attic space, nope. Bending radius. Makes sense, right? All right, so then the questions that we had was 5, 8, 10, and 12. They become very important to when you look in the body of the code language. Here, I see 5 times. Now, in our question, it was the number 5. You've got to mentally be able to distinguish this. These are little mental gymnastics that you'll get good at, trust me. In my course, you can't help but get better. You will start to feel like you're connected to the code. You just can't help but do it the way we structure it, the way we give you the chevrons, the way you're supposed to do it. All right, so anyway, here's what we've got. So the answer is the radius of the curve on the inner edge of the bend shall not be less than 5 times the diameter of the cable. So that inner edge, so if you're bending it, think about bending it around a ball. So in a ball, you've got the diameter, which is across the ball, the center out, the pivot point, that's considered the radius, and then the measurement around the ball is the circumference. We're not asking about the diameter. We're not asking about the circumference. We're asking about the radius. So the radius is basically the curvature of the ball. And you have to make sure that the cable bending around it is not bent tighter. It has to be at least 5 times the diameter of the cable. So you take the cable diameter, which is published by the manufacturer, just go to the manufacturer's website, get their product sheet, find the diameter, right, of that, okay? And again, that's what the cable is. Now the radius, you take that value, that diameter, and you multiply that times what? 5. And that's how you're developing the radius. Anyway, trust me. The key thing here is you don't want to bend to damage the cable. So if you learn all this, then what's interesting about this is that dot 24 is the same for 330 for MC. It's the same for, as far as the same location. It's not the same value, but it's also the same location in 334.24 for non-metallic sheath cable. So learn that dot 24 for your radius and your bends, and it just makes life so much easier. But in this case, the answer is 5. We're going to answer that question. There's the answer. There's our reference. Bing, bang, boom. There you go. All right, next question. All right, so this is a question that you need a little bit of, got to know Ohm's law. You got to know there's 2 formulas here that you got to remember. Now, good news is, usually in the exam, they give you these formulas. But if not, I'm going to show you 2 of them, and I didn't prepare it for the screen, but I did jot these down, is that, and wait a minute, let me write this down so I can show you these formulas. Hold on. To solve this question. All right, bear with me. Okay. All right, so here's your formulas. You have what's called an EIR and a PIE. You need to solve this for what you don't have. So let's look at this. And these are things that you can write down. Now, you get scratch paper on an exam. You also get dry erase boards sometimes on an exam. If they don't give you your pi wheels, make sure the first thing you do is write them down on your scratch paper. Do your EIR, do your PIE, okay, those type of ohms wheels and things like that. So these are going to help you. So let's look at this one. A conductor carries 30 amps and it's 0.5 ohms. We'll lose blank watts of power. Well, we need to solve for the W, which is the watts, which in our formula is the PIE, okay? All right, well, you put your finger over the P, and to solve it, it's I times E, right? I'll do it this way. I times E. Well, I don't know what E is, but I know what R is. I know what ohms are, and I do have the amps. So then I say, well, maybe I got to solve for E first because I need E because that's part of that pi wheel. So I'm going to jump to this one here. And what am I need to solve for? I'm going to solve for E. So I put my finger over E. So now it's I times R. So let's do this. So I is 30 times R, which is 0.5, and that is 15. Now I take that 15, which is the E, and now I solve the one that's going to help me answer the question. Now I cover the P, and now I do I times E. Well, now we know what E is, so I'm going to go I, which is 30, times E, which is 15. All right, so we got 30 times 15, 450. Guess what? That's your wattage. You can cross-reference this and find all of this out by using the formula, right? So at the end of the day, don't be afraid to write your formulas down. If you're in an exam where they allow you to write in your code book, don't be afraid to write these in your code book. Now, a lot of times people will write these in their code book. Remember, your exam's got to allow you to do this. Don't say Paul told you to write in your code book and you get there and then they tell you you can't use your code book. You need to do your due diligence. Check with the test center. They might have a bulletin available. If it's a PSI exam, go to psiexam.org and get the bulletin for your state. But in the front, you have a lot of blank space, okay, under where you got code panel members. This blank space should be where you write formulas down, okay? Over on my Facebook page, I have posted images of all types of formulas that you should write down. Hopefully you follow us over on the Facebook, Master the NEC, and search for them, you'll find them. But that's some blank pages that you can write stuff down, all different types of formulas. But again, check and make sure that your test center allows you to write in your code book. I don't want you to do it and then Paul said write in my book and then they don't let you take the exam. Don't blame me. I'm just saying. All right, so this question, 450. So it's 450 watts of power. Okay, you're losing 450 watts in this scenario. Okay, it's just that easy. And these are very basic, but notice how I really had to do multiple steps to do that. To be able to achieve that, right? Okay, anyway. Another way you could have done this is you could have done 30 amps times 0.5 the ohms. So I would have been 30 times 0.5. That would be 15, and then you have the 15, and then you could have taken that 15 and used it in the equation PIE. Then you would have done 30 times 15, and that would have given you 450. Many ways to do it. Just get fluid in it. And we have a video on Ohm's Law that's only available on our fastrackstube.com. Make sure we also go over series and parallel circuits. It's a great video. Check it out. Again, it's only available to subscribers and Fastracks Plus members. All right, next question. Doing great. And believe it or not, in some exams, that might be as much as a two math type question. Again. All right, next question. All right, let's see here. Let's see here. Let me make sure I get my thing ready. Okay, there we go. All right, blank cable is permitted to be installed as direct burial without any other protection. So basically, throw it in the earth, direct burial. Okay, well, some of these you should use deductive reasoning. And if you've been in the field as long as I have, some of these immediately, this one should be one that you answer right away. This is a good example of when I do the 3-wave method, and there's a video about that as well over on Fastracks Tube, where I teach you my special method to do an exams called the 3-wave. I started this well over 25 years ago. It's been copied by many people, but I actually remember back as the electrical guru, many people know that it's long before the internet, well, not before internet, before YouTubes and before, it was back when AOL was around. I uploaded stuff online and I came up with this method. All right. Now, I'm not going to say I'm the owner of it. I'm not, but I believe I was the first one using it. This kind of concept of the wave technique. All right. Okay. You could say, Paul, you're full of crap, but you know, I've been around a long time. So look, you answer all of the questions that you know in the first wave without even having to crack your code book open. You just know the answer. Now, if you're still waffling a little bit and you answer it, you can still electronically check it to be in your list for the second wave. But if you know it and you're in your gut, you're like, I know it. Then you answer it and you move on. Because you've now taken a question that was going to give you two minutes or 2.5 minutes. You answered it in seconds. Now you get to use all that time on a harder question. And that's how you build up more time. And that's how we call it the 3-wave method. The first wave, you're answering just what you know. This is an example of you should be able to answer this by your experience and what you know, right? I mean, look at it. Non-metallic sheet cable, NM. A dry location only product. Cannot be installed outdoors, cannot be obviously installed underground outdoors. Those are all wet locations. Next one, we'll skip UF. SE cable, service entrance cable. It doesn't take you long to go to where? You guessed it, Article 338, and look at the top and look at what service entrance cable is. In fact, you can even go now in Article 100 and look under the definition, service entrance cable. It didn't say USC, by the way, it says SE. If you look at it, it's for above ground applications. It's not designed for below ground. Now, interesting, is SE cable? I am the actual patent holder of a product called a hybrid cable. It's only available by Encore Wire Corporation. I am the patent holder. It is actually an SE cable and a tray cable merged together, and it is allowed to be dumped straight into the earth. Go check it out at Encore Wire's website. It is, again, exclusive to Encore Wire. All right, next one is THHN. Well, you all know that THHN cannot be exposed without being in a raceway. It cannot be dumped into the earth. Obviously, it's not even a wet location rating. This is just THHN. It might be dual rated, THHN/THWN-2, because most of the time it is. You're on an exam, and all it says was THHN. It's irrelevant. And even THWN-2 can't be thrown in the ground either. It's got to be in a raceway. Can be in underground in a raceway, but it can't be by itself directly buried. And that's what this question is asking. The only one here that's allowed to be installed in the ground directly without any other protection on it, as far as a raceway or anything, is UF, underground feeder. It's also underground branch circuit as well, but we refer to it as underground feeder. All right, UF. Easiest question here. You should have known that right out the gate. I'm not even going to take the time to look that one up because you should know that. UF, U, underground. Simple, easy peasy. Article 340. All right. So we're gonna hit it and we'll just answer the question. There we go. 340.10. Remember what 10.10 was? Uses permitted. Notice it's asking, it's saying it is permitted. You should have your ding, ding, ding. You should be going, this is easily a .10. So if you knew that the article was 340, the question was a permitted use, you're like, oh, that's a .10. That's a no-brainer. See how this works? You're getting it. I know you're getting it. This is what our entire program does. It retrains you. It trains the mind. That's why I'm always so excited when I can present the Fastracks program, because it's like no other program. You might be trying to learn on your own, and that's great, but you're making it harder on yourself. Yes, you got to invest in our program, but I promise you, you're going to get more out of it than you ever imagined. And you're going to walk away with that investment giving you dividends forever. Not to mention, you get access to me forever, okay? I support this app. I'm personally answering these things for you. Come on, that's worth it, isn't it? All right, so let's go to the next one. Y'all are doing good. And then I told you these questions are a little harder, not super, super tough, but a little bit harder. All right, so next question. Fixture wire shall not be smaller than what? Okay, all right, think about this for a second. Fixture wire. Trigger's already going up. Ding, 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 ding. Y'all know that there's an article specifically about fixture wire, right? Y'all know that it's in there. Now, if you didn't, and what's the question? Again, every now and then I'll kind of relate to this. If you don't know, you do know that fixture wire is going to be something that's in the index, right? But you also know it's in the table of contents, and it is a wiring method, okay? But it's unique in a sense on where you got to look, because you're thinking, oh, it's kind of like it's not really a wiring method. Let me rephrase that. This is a wire, and it's fixture wire. So immediately you might thinking, well, it's in chapter 3, but it's not EMT, it's not rigid, it's not kind of a delivery system. It's just a fixture wire. So it's not going to be in chapter 3. So you're thinking, okay, where else could it be? Okay, so you're going to go to the table of contents maybe, and you're thinking, well, I'll start back at 3 because I know it's not in 3, because that's the different wiring methods and material. And then it doesn't take you any time to look and see, all right, chapter 4, equipment for general use. And then you look at real quickly and you'll see, wait a minute, there's a 402 that says fixture wires. And that's at page 260. Wow, and that's not very long, because then it jumps to 440 at 263. So you're thinking, crap, this ain't very big. Fixture wire is not very big. All right, but what about the index? You're thinking, oh, crap, I don't know anything about fixture wire. So I'm going to go back in the back of the book, and I'm going to look under fixture wire. And you know something's going to be there, right? So let's see. Let me see if I see anything under fixture wire. Fixture wires, Article 402. But then you look at it and go, well, what are we asking about? Wire sizes. Look down real quick. Minimum size, right there. It says 402.6. Folks, that's seconds. But maybe you're the kind of guy or gal that says, I know, Paul, I've done my research. That's a very small article. I'm looking for minimum size. That's something that I should see. So I'm going to just go to 402 and I'm going to bold scan. Okay, that's you. Let's do it. All right, we're going to go down, and we're going to, if I can get my mouse over here, we're going to go down to 402. We've identified that out. All right, we let everything run through our mind. Here's 402. Now, if I was bold scanning, I'm looking, ampacity is not what it asked. Minimum size. You know? What did that take? Nothing, right? Plus the triggers in the question. It said 10, 12, 16, 18. These are triggers. So not only minimum size, but we see fixture wire shall not be smaller than 18 gauge. It's just that easy, folks. So we come back over to the question, and you go, boom, 18, 402.6. Folks, it's really, once you get really good at it, it becomes so much easier and fluent to be able to do these things. Okay, be a little tough for you. Let's do one more in this episode, and we'll test you out. We're gonna be a little bit more, okay? Because I love you. I want to give you more. So let's go. Another question. All right. Are we going to test your mental ability here, folks? Exam prep condition, real world condition. Think about these things. Let's look at this question. A service entrance conductor for a single family dwelling with a 120, 240 volt, 200 amp overcurrent protected device. So we've already established the overcurrent protection device size. It's 200 amps in this question. As a main disconnect, shall require a minimum blank AWG copper conductor. Okay. So the first thing that somebody will say to me is, Paul, I don't know the loads. I got to do a load calculation, things like that. And I'm like, no, there's some triggers here. Have you ever heard me refer to the term of the 83% rule, as long as all the conditions apply? That is not an exception. That is an allowance in the code. And it's found under 310.12. I already know that it's a single family dwelling, which is one of the caveats. I already know that it's a 120, 240 volt system. So we know this is a 3-wire system, 2 hots and a neutral. And it tells me the rating of the overcurrent device. It's a 200 amp. It's really all I need for this question. And so a lot of people will get hung up on this and say, oh, well, oh God, I got to go to 310.16 and pick a conductor under copper, because it says it's a copper conductor. I got to go under the 75. I got to do all of this. But there are allowances in the code, and this is one of those examples where we said we weren't going to use index. We're going to teach you that if you meet all the conditions, then there's a thing called, we refer to it as the 83% rule, okay? And so let's go look at that. Where's that at in the code? Now, if you're in the 2017 code and you're watching this, it's 310.15b7. If you're in the 2020 code, it's 310.12. If you're in the 2023 code, it's also 310.12. Okay? Didn't move. Now, let's go look at it real quickly. So we'll go to the code. And this is an example of one that it's not so much searching through the code. All right, because this is one that I want you to listen to me. I want you to understand that when you're doing a calculation and it's a single family dwelling, you get to use 310.12, right? So, but if all the caveats that are in there aren't applicable, then you can't use it and you're just going to go size it based on 310.16, which is the ampacity table. But here, since there's no other conditions of use given, it doesn't say ambient temperature, it doesn't say the number of current conductor, it's nothing. So you get to go straight to 310.12, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take us there. 310.12. Now, notice some things here. Single phase, dwelling, service, and feeders. Okay? For one family dwellings and the individual dwelling units of a two-family or multifamily, not the whole multifamily. The individual units, you're allowed to apply 310.12 as long as it is a single phase, 122 40-volt system. You are permitted to size it based on 310.12a through D. And of course, if you're in the 2017, it's 310.15b7, and you have the different numbers there, right? B1, B2, all that kind of stuff. All right. B7, B7.1, B7.2, all that kind of stuff. All right. So again, 2017. Who's still on that? All right. So anyway, all right. Now that's what we're going to be looking at. Okay. Now, also, just for your mind, you're thinking, well, can I ever use it on a three-phase system? No, you can't use it on the three-phase, but you can use it on the single phase that is derived from a three-phase, where we take two of the phases and a neutral. Okay, then that would be allowable here, and that is a 208 120-volt system. Okay, so again, but in our question, it's a single family, so we get to ignore all of that and really focus on this. And so we go down. Now, since ours is a service, we're stopping at A. But if it had been a feeder, there's B, okay? So we're looking here, and it says, for a service rated 100 amps through 400, well, we already know ours is 200, because that's what they already gave us in the question. It says the service conductor is supplying the entire load associated with the one family dwelling. Let me explain that. When something says that it's the entire load, it means that every single load that's in that dwelling is going to be pulled through those service conductors, right? So that means it's coming to a panel in every branch circuit, every load's going in there. So those service conductors are going to see the full effect of all of those loads. So those conductors are dealing with the entire load. That's so important. Why? Because if I was doing an application where I had an outside and I had a panel outside, and then now it comes in and let's say it's a feed-through panel, and now it's feeding a panel inside or another panel that's the service panel, but it's feeding through, yet I have some lug breakers in there that are feeding some loads that might be close to that panel. Anytime that the conductors from that panel to the other disconnect or whatever equipment, if that's not seeing all of the loads in the dwelling, then I cannot use this allowance for those conductors, right? It's not seeing the entire load, so it wouldn't be able to do that. So a good example of this is a feeder application, same rule, but let's say I was coming down through the meter, and then I come down and I hit an outside disconnect. It might be the emergency disconnect, but it's also the service disconnect. And then from the load side of that, I'm feeding a panel, remote distribution panel inside the dwelling, right? So let's say that outside service disconnect also is a panel with breakers in it, right? So from the point of attachment down through the meter to that service disconnect, those conductors are seeing the entire load of the dwelling, whatever's in that panel plus the remote panel downstream. So 310.12 would apply. However, the conductors that are going to the remote distribution panel is the feeder now. And so that would take us down to B. And again, that feeder can use the same rule, the 83%, but that feeder is not seeing the entire load, right? Because some of the breakers are outside at the service. So I could not use 310.12 for that feeder. Now, it doesn't have to be larger than what the service conductors would be, and that tells you that right here. So in no case does that feeder need to be larger than what the service would be. In case your calculation for that feeder ended up being a larger cable than what it was supplying the outside panel, then it doesn't have to be larger than the one outside. That's what that note says. What I'm trying to hammer home is, to use this 83% rule, the conductors that you're sizing in this question has to see the contribution from the entire load of the dwelling, not some of it, all of it, to be able to apply this rule. So in our question, it didn't say anything else. It just says it's a 200 amp panel, and that's going to see everything in this dwelling. It didn't imply anything otherwise. So that's where we're going to be using the 83% on that 200 amp. So let's go look at it. So here's what it says right here. It says we have to establish that it's 100 through 400, and it is. It says that it shall be permissible to have an ampacity, okay, of not less than 83% of the service rating. The service rating is that 200 amp. The service rating is the disconnecting means. That's the rating of that overcurrent device. That is the rating, okay? In this case, it's 200. Now, again, as long as no other adjustment or corrections are in play, means we don't have more than 3 current carrying conductors, we don't have an ambient temperature that is other than 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And the service, again, whether or not your inspector knows how to do that outside anyway, probably not. I'm sure none of you actually correct for that. I'm just saying. So if that's the case, then I simply can go down here to this table. So here's the 200 amp rating, and copper right here, it'd be a 2-aught, and that's it. Now, if you go to 310.16, that would need to be a 3-aught, but here it can be a 2-aught, and you're perfectly okay. Make sense? All right, so that's important. We sometimes call this the smaller service conductor rule. But again, you have to meet all of those caveats to be able to use this. Otherwise, you're just going to size it in 310.16, okay? But don't think this is an exception. This is not an exception. This is an allowance. It's in the code. So people ask me on an exam, when would I apply this? And the answer to that is you would apply this anytime those variables are in play. 120-volt system, 3-wire service, and it handles 100% of the loads, and your load calculation puts it between 100 and 400, then you're perfectly okay. Sorry about that, folks. That's just is, you know, I'm recording and I've got loudness around me sometimes. So, but I'm not going to do this video over because I'm 45 minutes into it. So I'm going to keep going. All right. So in that case, we're coming back. And as we saw, it would be 2-aught. And there's our reference, 310.12. Okay. All right. So that's a lot of information. Hopefully you get something out of it. And that's important to understand it. And that's what we're going to go with today. And we're going to stop right there for that video. We got one more video in this series. The questions get a little tougher. But here's the thing, folks. If you're interested in a structured program, you really want to learn the National Electrical Code, then I'm going to encourage you to go over to our website. And on my website, you can see we have the exam preps right here. If you're already licensed and you want to get better at residential, we have residential courses that deep dive. I mean, deep dive into residential wiring. Maybe you got 4 or 5 guys in your crew and you want to all be on the same page. Residential is the way to go. Same for commercial, same for industrial. We even have a grounding and bonding course. If you've ever struggled with asking about service bonding, supply side bonding, jumper sizing, all these type of things, electrodes and how that works, our grounding and bonding course is beyond compare. And it's basically in the same structure as all of our other courses. So I encourage you to check it out. All right. All of that's on our website. The URL's down below. Check it out, folks. Anyway, Hey, thank you for spending some time with me today. We'll catch you in episode 4. Hope you learned something about it. Till next time, stay safe. God bless.